to Brewing Success, where growth is the mission, change is the reward, and progress is the goal. I am your host, Andrea Gebhardt. I'm a former educator turned passionate entrepreneur whose desire to create impact has never wavered. I've spent the last decade teaching, mentoring, and coaching people on how to create success in their lives and businesses with proven strategies and systems that not only bring about change, but big results. When it comes down to it, teaching is my specialty, leadership is my jam, and inspiring you to live a bigger, fuller life is what I'm all about. This podcast will give you the knowledge and tools you need to brew success in almost any area of your life. You're going to walk away each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to step outside your comfort zone and into the next level of who you're meant to be. Now let's get into today's episode. No grit, no glory. Or so they say. And what does that even mean anyways? When it comes to leadership, success, being an entrepreneur, we are told that you need to be hardworking, determined, coachable, consistent, growth-focused. And I'm pretty sure I'm leaving out a few, but if you think of someone you know who is successful, I am sure that you could easily come up with a description for them. And we could definitely add that to the list. There will never be a shortage of qualities that we think of when we think of people who are successful. Now, don't get me wrong, these characteristics are absolutely essential. You have to be hardworking if you want to be successful. We know this. You have to have massive determination to go after what you want in this life. You must be coachable to the experts, systems, and so much more. You have to be growth focused to make true progress, as your growth will always catch up to you. The growth you have or haven't focused on will always reveal itself. There is one quality, though, that we don't really talk about, one that is not as commonly known as the others, and that is grit. Shoot, I had never even really heard of grit prior to reading Angela Duckworth's book, which I highly, highly recommend, by the way. Grit was a new concept to me, and I was eager to learn more about it. You see, I find myself reading books about things I'm passionate about. This is why half of my bookshelf is filled with leadership books. I have an unquenchable thirst for knowledge in the realm of leadership. What makes a good leader, what skills they possess, how to lead different types of people, leadership principles. If it has to do with leading people, I want to learn more about it. That is how I stumbled across Angela Duckworth's book. She gets down to the nitty-gritty, see what I did there? To uncover why success has more to do with passion and perseverance than talent. That notion intrigued me. I've heard that effort outperforms talent, but I had never heard about this concept of grit in relation to success and talent. This topic is important to me because I mentor people daily who question their own ability to be successful because they are not as talented as others. Maybe you have questioned your ability to be successful because you don't see yourself as talented or gifted in certain areas, and you think that because of that, you don't have the ability to be successful. But if we know that effort trumps talent, if we know that passion trumps talent, if we know that perseverance trumps talent, then we also know that we can trump that fear if we are willing to do the work. This means that success is attainable in anything by anyone who is willing to develop and nurture the developable characteristics like grit. And if grit is something we can cultivate, and if grit is a key characteristic, well then hot dang, this can get really exciting really fast. And this is where my leadership pole starts to elevate, because that means that we all have the potential to do and accomplish what we set out to do and accomplish. I think everyone should read that book. It's a life changer for sure. Get a better understanding of what grit is, what research proves, and how grit impacts success. There's also a really cool assessment in there you can take to discover your grit level with steps on how to increase it. But for now, let's talk about grit. Grit is the ability to stick it out. Grit is the ability to keep going. Grit is what I like to call the bounce factor, meaning how fast and how soon you bounce back from challenges and setbacks. Are you like those little rubber bouncy balls we all used to get at those little, quarter machines? Are you like a little rubber bouncy ball? Or are you like one of those globby slime balls? Do you bounce or do you get stuck when it gets hard? Do you see challenges as opportunities or do you have a tendency to quit when it gets tough? How you respond in these situations is a good signifier of your level of grit. Some people are naturally grittier than others, and that's okay because it's not about how gritty you are, but about how gritty you can become. Grit is a skill. It's developable, and it's necessary to be successful long-term. It's also essential to developing quality leaders, but we can't develop what we don't know about. This is why we are taking some time to talk about grit today, because what we bring awareness to, we can grow and develop. This topic matters because being a leader, an entrepreneur, heck, even being a mom is not easy. Life is full of challenges, setbacks, resets, sacrifice, and so much more. When you're in the business of leading people, it's magnified because humans are complex. They come in all shapes, sizes, temperaments, personalities, needs, wants, trauma, beliefs, and values. Working for the good of people with people requires a level of grit that must be acquired. Grit is what separates the good from the great. Grit is what separates those who max out and then those who never really reach their full potential. Grit is what gives a leader an edge. It's also what gives a leader depth. Gritty leaders create gritty teams, and gritty teams go on to become unstoppable. And I love that we're talking about this here today because it's one of those things that you might be missing. You may not be aware of grit. Therefore, you're not really aware of how you react and you respond in moments of hardship or adversity. And when you're not aware of, what your level of grit looks like, it's really hard to get a good handle on it. It's really hard to nurture it, to grow it, and to develop it. You want to increase your grit if you want to increase your level of success. Grit is your ability to deal with setbacks. So you have to ask yourself, when something goes wrong or doesn't work out, how do you react? Are you ready to throw in the towel? Do you complain? Do you get angry? Do you take it out on others? Do you sink and sulk into the abyss? The size of the setback doesn't matter, but your reaction to it does. It says a lot about who you are and where you are in your growth. I always say the equipped don't trip. The more growth you've done, the less you get tripped up by the little and the big things because you understand the role it plays in shaping and refining you and your dream. Just like if you see someone who is a runner but can't quite hit that 3-mile mark in stride, we know we need to work on endurance. So too is that person who lacks the ability to keep going regardless of the hardship. We got to work on their grit. It's funny because when I think about grit, it makes me think about my middle son who loves Lego sets, loves difficult, complex Lego sets. And we got one of these Lego sets. It's, I don't even know what kind of car it is, but he's building this full blown, it looks like a model car. It's beautiful and it was expensive and there were a billion pieces. And he saw it and he was like, Mom, I want to build that. He's totally into cars. All right, bud, let's get this Lego set. And we get it home and I don't know, he's probably like 26 pages into building this Lego set. And he gets ready to move on to the next part and he cannot figure out why he is unable to build this next piece. And he's sitting there and he's looking at it and he's looking back and forth and he's closely examining this car that he started to build. And I noticed that he's not working at the same pace And I noticed his demeanor's kind of changed and his attitude has kind of changed. And so I check in on him and I was like, hey, what's going on? What's up? He's like, well, something's wrong. I can't figure out what happened, why I can't move on to this next piece. Something's not coming together right. And he sat there and I was like, well, why don't you just step away from it? Like, you've been sitting here for hours staring at these little pieces and putting this car together. Why don't you just take a step back for a second? Maybe you need to refresh your perspective. Maybe you need to come at it from a different angle. Maybe you just need to like take a step back so that you have the ability to kind of look at the problem and reassess and go from there. And so he did. He took a break for a hot minute and he came back to it and he was working, and his big brother comes into the kitchen because he's sitting at the countertop working on the set. And he's like, what's the matter, dude? Like, bro, like what's going on? Why aren't you not building this set still? And he's like, well, something's wrong and da-da-da. He's like, we probably did something wrong. You probably messed it up. You should probably just quit. You should probably just throw it away. You should probably just, he was so quick to like encourage him to throw in the towel. He's like, no, I'm going to figure this out because I have all the pieces. They're all here. I have the directions. I know how to do this, but I've got to figure it out. And I remember stopping in that moment and kind of thinking, oh, okay, Carter's kind of, all right, that's grit right there. Deciding the end goal of building this Lego set was so important to him, getting it to completion, having this thing that he was able to do was so important to him that he was willing to think through, to work through, this little challenge that he had. And even my daughter she was like, I hate when that happens. Like, I just don't build that part, or this, the little set, or this just doesn't get the little ice cream cart because I couldn't figure it out. And I thought to myself, gosh, like I've got to work on helping my kids understand how to persevere in the face of challenges and adversity. And even when it comes to something as simple as a Lego set, because it's these little lessons in life that give us, the foundation to run on those big moments in life that happen later on down the road in adulthood. And so it was just really interesting to me to see him sit there. And of course, he figured it out. He found out he put a piece on in the wrong place, and that's why something else wasn't connecting. So he took it apart and he rebuilt it and got on better with it. And, about a week later, he built this beautiful, super complex thing. And he was so proud of himself. And I was really proud of him too. But I don't think he was proud at the completion of the project. He was more proud about being able to figure out what happened and move through all of that. And I was really proud of him too. See, grit is rooted in self-belief. Your self-belief. If you don't believe in yourself and in your ability, then chances are you are like on the lower side of that grit scale. Grit is also charged with a deep intrinsic motivation to change our surroundings. Like, how bad do you want it? How important is that end goal to you? And this makes me think about, my life a little bit. And it makes me think about, I've worked really hard my entire life to get the degrees, to have the career, to become a successful entrepreneur. I've dealt with the setbacks and the adversity. And I always just believed that no matter what challenge came my way, I had the ability to overcome it. No matter what hardship I was going to experience or endure, that I had this ability to overcome it, this belief in myself. And I want to remind you of the belief that you should have in yourself, in your ability to overcome challenges, your ability to look at adversity in the face and be able to move beyond that, because I know that you have already done that in your life. You've already been through really hard things. You've already overcome crazy, detrimental experiences in your life. You have already done that. So your belief in yourself and your ability to overcome hardship and challenges, never forget that. We've all been through something incredibly difficult and challenging that, literally challenged us to our core, that almost took us out. We overcame that. That's how you got to be where you are today. So never forget who you are and what you've overcome to be where you are
in this life. Grit is rooted in that self-belief. You've got it in there. Grit is also, again, charged with the deep intrinsic motivation to change our surroundings. And the reason why I've worked so hard my entire life, and the reason why I'm a naturally gritty person, is I didn't want to grow up poor. I didn't want to grow up and become an adult and not have money to take care of my family and not have the ability to do things. I wanted to change my surroundings. I remember being 9 years old, wanting to live a different life. I remember wanting to do really well in school, be the first kid to go to college, because if the other people in my family didn't, and that's why there were hardships, well, if I did, that might lessen my hardships. And, really just having that strong desire to change my surroundings. The reason why I pursued becoming an entrepreneur is because I wanted to change my surroundings. I wanted to change the way I was spending my time. I wanted to change the way I wasn't spending time with my family. I wanted to be in charge of what that looked like, that big goal, of having that time freedom, having options, having choices, being able to be fully present with my kids. That was so important to me. And it was that deep intrinsic motivation to change that about my surroundings, about my life, that was a driving force and factor of where I am today. And you are charged too with a deep intrinsic motivation to change your surroundings. But you got to lean into that. Grit is about sustained intent and sustained effort toward long-term goals. Starting isn't enough. It's about going, doing, and growing, continuing to go, grow, and do, even in the face of adversity. It's about unwavering faith and determination toward that end goal, constantly and consistently creating a higher purpose for yourself. And we can apply this in lots of different areas. But when I think about people who want to be healthy, right? They want to live a healthier lifestyle. They want to eat healthier. They want to work out. They want to move their bodies. They want to work on physical strength and endurance. They really want to adopt that healthy lifestyle. It's not about starting the healthy lifestyle. It's not about just starting to drink more water, starting to pay attention to what you're eating, starting to go to the gym. It's about that sustained intent. It's about that sustained effort toward that long-term goal of being the healthiest version of yourself. But look at what happens. We go to the gym. We're really excited. It gets a little bit hard. We get a little out of breath. Our muscles get a little bit sore, and we stop and we quit midway. We never finish the workout, or we don't, walk out of the gym with the same level of intent that we went into it. Same thing with healthy, like trying to live a healthy lifestyle and eating healthy. You start out with the best in mind, but then you let yourself have a cheat day. Right? And that's a whole nother, we could talk about cheat days and cheating on your goals a whole other time, and why that's such a self-defeating kind of like idea. But, it's about that sustained effort. Living a healthy lifestyle is living a healthy lifestyle every day. It's a sustained effort that gets you closer to that end goal. Let's take a moment and do some work together so we can begin to nurture and develop this skill that is essential to our success and our ability to successfully lead others. So I'm going to ask some questions. And if you're driving, come back to this so you can write them down. If you have a notebook and pencil or something handy, definitely write these down, because these are going to help you start to nurture and develop and cultivate your own level of grit. So here are some questions that you have got to know the answers to in order to develop your grit level, we'll call it. Okay. First one, do you have a clear goal? So do I have a clear goal? A clear goal. A clear goal isn't an idea of where you want to be or what you want to have happen. It is a very specific goal, right? Is it clear? Because we can have an idea of what we want, but until we bring clarity to it, until we define it, until we make it super specific, it's really hard to work toward. And the crazy thing, and the reason why having a clear goal is important, because if you don't know where you're going or what you're working toward, then chances are you're not going to get there. And grit isn't going to matter anyway. The next question is, what am I working toward? What is it that you're working toward? The third question, what is the big picture end goal? And the big picture end goal is that down the road goal. Like if you were to visualize literally what you're working toward and what that big picture end goal is, why does it matter? Why is this important to you? What's the big deal? What that does is it kind of creates tracks for you to run on. It also creates something for you to come back to, something for you to realign with when you get derailed, which we're also going to talk about. But what is that big picture end goal? This next question is really important. What will happen that will make me want to quit and give up? If you can identify ahead of time that the things that are going to cause you to want to quit and or give up, when you can name those and you can identify them, here's what this does for you. You actually call them out. So you're almost anticipating these challenges, these adversities that you're going to encounter. And when you know that you're going to be encountering something, when you know the likelihood or the possibility of something happening, and when you actually come to it, you're actually able to overcome it so much faster because you can't help but create a plan. You can't help but have an idea. It's kind of like when you're going on a road trip and you're driving, maybe, okay, so for example, if I'm heading down to my sister's house, she lives down in Southern California, I literally have to take 5 freeway exchanges to get to her house. And because I know the journey down there, right, I know where I'm going. If there is major traffic on one of the freeways, if there's an accident along any of the roadways, if there's a situation, a challenge or problem that could arise that I could encounter, if I anticipate that ahead of time, then I know what exit I'm going to go on, what side street I might take instead, what detour I can hop on so that I can still get there and not spend half my life in traffic. So what will happen that's going to make me want to quit and give up? This seems like a really weird question to ask, but my gosh, if you can pre-identify the little things that are going to happen, the challenges and the setbacks that are going to happen, they're going to make you want to give up and quit. Then what happens is when you actually get to those things, you already have a plan in place. You already know how you're going to overcome it. You are already expecting it to rear its ugly little head. Therefore, you have kind of like an ability to see it before it happens, and it's not as big of a deal. It doesn't catch you by surprise because you knew that was going to take place. And because you knew it was coming, it's kind of like if I know my oldest son is always going to be around a corner to jump out and scare me because he thinks he's funny. So although I might look a little bit paranoid when I walk outside or turn a corner in my own house, I know that there's a pretty good chance he's going to be there. So I anticipate him, get myself prepared. And does it still throw me off a little bit? Yep. Do I still scream? Yep. Do I sometimes still pee my pants? Yep. Do I still sometimes swing combatively at him? Yes, absolutely. But it's not as bad as it would have been if I wasn't expecting it. And so that's really important. Here's the next one. What will I do instead? Instead of giving up or quitting when it gets hard or something happens or there's a major setback or there's a major derailment, what am I going to do instead? Having this plan in place ahead of time is going to naturally increase your grit and help you develop that along the way. The next question, how will I respond when I meet challenges face to face? Deciding ahead of time how you're going to respond when you meet these challenges. That is so big. And I love this conversation because it's so proactive. I love this. And proactive, oh my gosh, always better than reactive every day, right? How are you going to respond when you meet challenges face to face? Deciding ahead of time what you're going to do, what that's going to look like, what that's going to sound like, so that you don't get thrown off, so that you have the ability to overcome quicker, so that setbacks or hiccups, that's all that they are, little teeny tiny speed bumps. They are not mountains and giant walls that seem insurmountable and just too big to handle. You have a plan. And then the last question, What will I do to reset my vision and realign my energy? What will I do to reset my vision and realign my energy? Why is that important? Because anytime you get off track, you're going to have to reset your vision. You're going to have to remind yourself what it is that you're working toward and why it matters. You're going to have to paint that picture for yourself of why this work is so worth it, why it's so valuable, why it's so important, why you're willing to meet these challenges head on and continue to work and go for it. And what are you going to do to realign your energy? What are you going to do to realign your energy? Why does that matter? Because when there's a setback, when there's adversity, it's always going to rob you of a little bit of your energy. We can't help it. We're human, right? We're going to get disappointed. We're going to get frustrated. We're going to have emotions associated with the challenges, with the setbacks that we're enduring and that we're facing. But how are you going to realign your energy so that it gets you back on track? How are you going to redirect that energy so that it's fueled, or so that it fuels your journey and your progress? You want your energy to fuel that. You don't want your energy to fight that. So realigning your energy is incredibly important. You've got to have a plan. You have to know what will happen and how you will react and respond when you are in motion and you get derailed. Listen, when you are on the road to success, when you are working big toward that massive vision that you have for your life, there are going to be challenges. There are going to be setbacks. There are going to be struggles. There are going to be these quit points, these points you get to where you want to quit and you want to give up, but I want you to change those quit points into your grit points. This is not where I'm going to quit and give up. This is where I'm going to remember who I am, what I want, what I'm capable of, why this all matters, and get back to it. After all, grit is your ability to persevere, your ability to overcome, your ability to move beyond the challenges that will inevitably arise, and utilize that learning to forge a better path and become a better version of yourself. Grit is your superpower. Grit will unlock your potential and put you on the path to greatness. It is what will separate you from the pack. It is what drives your success. It is what will help you move the needle in your life, because it is what gives you the ability to persevere and maintain motivation toward the goals and the vision you have for your life. Grit is your superpower. Grit is your ability to overcome and move beyond the challenges that will inevitably arise. This is why grit matters when it comes to leadership. This is why grit matters when it comes to being an entrepreneur. This is why grit matters if you want to live and lead a successful life. Because if we know that challenges are coming, if we know that adversity is on the horizon, then we also have a responsibility to be aware of what we will do, how we will react, how we will respond to those things moving forward. We then must also identify what it is that we're working toward and why it matters, why we are willing to go through so much to bring that vision for our lives to life. If you enjoyed today's episode, I would love to hear about it. Reach out, share with me one thing that stood out to you. Tag this episode, link it in your stories so that we can help others understand the importance of developing their personal grit level. Remember that growth is our mission on the Brewing Success podcast. Change is the reward and progress is the goal. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I challenge you to work to develop your level of grit so that you can also work to continue to develop the level of success that you experience. If this episode shifted your mindset, please let me know by leaving a review below. Share with a few friends or teammates who need this little reminder. And if you want to get connected on a more personal level, let's connect on IG. And be sure to subscribe to my weekly Live Inspired email on leadlikeandreagebhardt.com.